The story begins deep in the woods, in an isolated house where a young woman named Maddie lived. That morning, she was preparing breakfast. A little later, her friend Sarah showed up. Since Maddie was both deaf and mute, Sarah communicated with her using sign language. During their conversation, we learned that Maddie was also a writer who had already finished an entire book. They were talking about the book when Maddie suddenly remembered the food on the stove, but because she had gotten so caught up in their chat, the food had burned. Smoke filled the house and the fire alarm went off. Both of them rushed into the kitchen, tossed the burnt food outside, and quickly silenced the alarm. Sarah signed, "Sorry, I distracted you and the food got ruined." Then she added, "How about we go out, grab dinner, and watch a movie?" But Maddie shook her head, firmly signing that she had too much work to do at home. With that, Sarah left, and Maddie went back inside. We then learned that Maddie had lost her ability to hear and speak because of an infection. At first it was temporary, but after surgeries and treatments, she lost both senses permanently. Because of this, she grew isolated and eventually chose to live alone in the woods. That night, while Maddie was writing her next story, she got stuck on how it should end. Frustrated, she started a video call to a friend, but her friend was upset with her and hung up. Maddie tried again, but then closed her laptop in frustration and headed to the kitchen. Just then, something horrifying happened. Sarah, who had left earlier, came back to Maddie's door, but before she could get inside, a masked man grabbed her and started stabbing her. Sarah screamed and cried for Maddie's help, but Maddie couldn't hear her. The masked man stabbed her again and again until she collapsed, bleeding out right in front of the door. The man stood there, glaring inside at Maddie with cold, terrifying eyes. He tapped on the glass, testing her, and when he was sure Maddie couldn't hear, he dragged Sarah's body away. Meanwhile, Maddie received a video call from another friend. As soon as Maddie answered, the masked man stepped out of sight. Maddie signed during the call, and her friend urged, "You should come live with me in the city." But Maddie refused, signing back, "I can't. The city's noise overwhelms me." At that moment, the masked man quietly crept in and picked up Maddie's phone. Her friend caught a glimpse of him on camera and shouted, "Maddie, there's someone behind you." Maddie quickly dismissed it. "Oh, that's probably just my cat," she signed, then added, "I'll hang up now. I need to go find her." Maddie searched every room for her cat but couldn't find her. Tired, she sat back down with her laptop. Suddenly, new photos popped up on her screen, but they were being sent from her own number. Her blood froze. The pictures were of her, working on her laptop, searching for her cat, even being on that video call. Maddie realized someone else was inside the house, watching her. Terrified, she looked toward the door. There stood the masked man holding her phone. Panicking, Maddie jumped up and slammed the door shut before he could get in. When he tried a window, she rushed to lock it. Frustrated, the masked man circled the house, searching for a way inside. Maddie tried calling the police, but he cut the power, plunging the house into darkness. He even changed the Wi-Fi password, blocking her from contacting anyone. Maddie's fear grew worse as the man outside held up a sharp, glinting knife, taunting her. Her breathing grew shallow, her hands shook. Then suddenly, he vanished. Cautiously, Maddie peeked out the door. She saw him stabbing holes into the tires of her car, cutting off her only way to escape. Maddie grabbed a flashlight and aimed it at the door. Written across it were chilling words. "I don't want you telling anyone you've seen my face. And beneath that, your boyfriend is coming." The masked man slowly removed his mask. Maddie's heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was her ex-boyfriend. Once, they had been in a relationship, but she had broken things off and distanced herself from him. That's why he wrote, "Your boyfriend is coming." He looked at her and said, "I want you back. Remember, I can get into your house any time I want, so be careful." With that, he turned and walked away, leaving Maddie trembling in the silence of her darkened home. Terrified and shaking, Maddie rushed into the kitchen. She grabbed a knife and a heavy stick, then searched every corner of the house to make sure the masked man hadn't slipped inside. She double-checked every lock, slamming the windows and doors shut, trying to steady her nerves. Suddenly, there was a knock at the window. Maddie froze. When she looked, her stomach dropped. It wasn't just anyone. It was him. The masked bastard was holding Sarah's lifeless body, banging her against the glass like a sick joke. Maddie's heart nearly stopped. She was paralyzed, horrified. Tears spilled down her face as the brutal reality of her friend's death sank in. But then, an idea. Maddie snatched up her car remote and hit the horn, the blaring sound startling the masked man. Seizing the moment, she leaned out the window, desperately trying to pull Sarah's body inside. but the masked man spotted her and moved in fast. Panic-stricken, Maddie yanked herself back inside and slammed the window shut. His hands grabbed from the outside, forcing it open. Thinking quick, Maddie grabbed a hammer lying nearby and smashed his hand with every ounce of strength she had. He roared in pain, jerking back. Maddie locked the window in a flash. Moments later, she saw him moving away from the door. Maddie made a break for it, but he caught sight of her and lunged. She sprinted back into the house, slamming the door behind her just as he nearly struck. She'd survived by a split second. Heart pounding, Maddie bolted upstairs. She grabbed the fire alarm, ran to the window, and hatched a plan. She switched it on and tossed it far away. The shrill beeping drew him off, giving her a chance. Maddie climbed onto the roof, scrambling to escape, but he still spotted her. As she climbed higher, an arrow whistled through the night. It struck her leg. She screamed in agony but forced herself up, tearing the arrow out with trembling hands. Blood poured. She knew she couldn't last much longer. The masked man climbed after her. Maddie fought back, punching him square in the face and shoving him down. He fell, losing his bow and arrows. She grabbed them, but fumbled. She didn't know how to use them. Stumbling back into her room, she slammed the window shut. She tried to patch up her wounds while struggling to fit an arrow to the bow. Her hands shook, her inexperience glaring. She couldn't get it right. Then came a knock at the door. Sarah's friend had arrived, calling Maddie's name. His voice carried through the night, catching the masked man's attention. Flashlight in hand, the killer stormed outside, yelling, "Thief! Thief!" Startled, Sarah's friend raised his hands in panic. "I'm not a thief. I'm Maddie's neighbor. My friend Sarah came here hours ago and never came back. I got worried, so I came looking for her." The masked man smoothly lied, claiming he was a police officer there to help. But things didn't add up. His weapon had been taken from him earlier, and now his phone slipped from his pocket. He asked to borrow the friend's phone, made a call, then slid it into his own pocket instead of returning it. When confronted, he finally handed it back, but Sarah's earring fell out of his pocket. Sarah's friend froze, suspicion burning in his eyes. "Maddie can't speak or hear," he snapped. "So who exactly called you?" The masked man faltered, then quickly covered. "Maybe it was your friend Sarah." That was all it took. Sarah's friend knew he was lying. He grabbed a stone, ready to attack. Maddie, watching through the window, pounded frantically to warn him, but the distraction was fatal. As Sarah's friend looked toward Maddie, the masked man lunged, slashing his throat wide open. Blood sprayed. He collapsed, choking and writhing. The killer leaned in to confirm the kill, but in one last surge of life, Sarah's friend grabbed him, slamming him to the ground and gripping his throat, signaling Maddie to run. Maddie bolted outside, but before she could escape, the masked man reappeared, blocking her. He tackled her, smashing her head into the ground again and again with a rock. Blow after blow until her skull gave way. In a frenzied rage, he killed her, but it wasn't real. It was Maddie's terrifying vision, her nightmare of how it might all end, a horrifying premonition that she'd never make it out alive. And just as she feared, what she imagined for herself had already become the gruesome fate of Sarah's friend, his head crushed under the merciless blows of the masked man. Now Maddie realized that if she wanted to survive, she had to take care of the wounds on her injured feet. At the same time, if she was going to fight the masked man, she would need a bow and arrows. She also knew she had to turn on the lights in the house. Being trapped in the dark would be far too dangerous. Her best chance would be to hide in either the bathroom or her bedroom, because once that monster broke in, her inability to speak or hear would leave her completely defenseless. After thinking it through, Maddie came to a hard conclusion. Running away or hiding wasn't an option. The only choice left was to kill the masked man. Just then, the masked man spotted Maddie's cat outside, and his attention shifted to it. In that moment, Maddie stepped to the front of the house and fired an arrow at him. But luck wasn't on her side. The arrow only struck his shoulder, barely slowing him down. The masked man yanked the arrow out and started chasing Maddie like a madman. Panicked, Maddie rushed back inside the house, forgetting the arrow outside. She managed to slam the door shut, but as soon as she reached out to grab the arrow, the masked man trapped her hand in the door. He twisted it hard and stomped on it, crushing her fingers badly. Despite groaning in pain, Maddie somehow pulled her hand free and slammed the door closed. She was in terrible shape now. Her hand was broken and she had lost her weapon. Seeing this, the masked man looked smug, almost satisfied. Maddie broke down crying, but within moments she pulled herself together. With trembling hands, she used her own blood to write a warning on the door. After that, she opened her laptop where the killer's identity started to come into focus. His height, eye color, tattoos, and hairstyle were all revealed. Meanwhile, the masked man grew furious and began pounding on the door. Seeing this, Maddie grabbed a kitchen knife and slipped into the bathroom. She held the knife tightly, pointing it toward the door, ready to strike the second he stepped in. But the horrifying truth was that the masked man was already there, sitting in the bathtub behind her. Mocking her, he whispered, "Maybe if I stab you in the right spot, your voice will finally come back." From the sound of his breathing, Maddie realized he was right behind her. She spun around and stabbed him with all her strength, then bolted out of the bathroom. She stumbled into the kitchen and collapsed on the floor, but the masked man attacked her again. This time, Maddie quickly grabbed a can of bug spray and blasted it into his eyes, then triggered the fire alarm. The house filled with shrieking noise, and the masked man writhed in agony from the sound. Enraged, he beat Maddie viciously, threw her to the ground, and began strangling her. Just then, Maddie's hand brushed against a sharp weapon. With every ounce of strength she had left, she drove it deep into the masked man's neck. Blood poured out as he thrashed in pain, and finally, he collapsed, dead. When silence returned, Maddie called the police. Inside, she felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Thank God I survived. Even though she had lost her loved ones, with courage and determination she had faced the masked monster and saved her own life. And with that, the story of this film comes to an end.